Unions of South Africa, Fedusa, and its public sector affiliates are taking legal action against government's failure to pay salary increases to public servants this year. The government failed to meet commitments to a 3-year wage deal struck in June 2018. This as Finance Minister Tito Mboweni plans to slash the public wage bill by 160 billion rand over the next 3 years. But to discuss this, I'm joined via Skype by Fedusa's General Secretary Riefdah Ajam. Riefdah, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us and a warm welcome to the Globe.
Very good evening to you and your listeners, and thank you for the opportunity.
Now, the salary increases were supposed to come into effect in April, but you're only taking legal action against the government now. What happened between April and now?
Simply, I think the notion that everybody needs to understand completely is the fact that the multi-term agreement that is subject to discussion right now and in question is the reneging of the latter part of the 3-year agreement. So between April and now, we have been awaiting the process to move forward with the legal action that we had anticipated. But at the same time, I want you to take heed of the fact that there have been conflicting narratives that have been coming forward in terms of government's commitment. And I say this by way of Minister Senzo Mkuno on the 31st of March in particular, openly welcoming the fact that government is committed to implementing the wage agreement on the 1st of April, despite the socio-economic challenges. So why are we going back and forth when we know more than ever that now the public servants are playing an absolutely critical role in the fight against COVID-19?
Well, the government obviously will make certain concessions that it will not give employees or government sector employees wage increases because of the COVID-19 health and economic interventions. What would you say to that?
Well, it's an absolutely difficult question to manage because we are seeing now, in particularly, the value and the importance of those very sectors within the public service, in particular. And what is absolutely disheartening is that this is the way that government gives thanks to its thousands of nurses who have been serving diligently from the start of the lockdown. And this is how government gives thanks to our educators who go back only within the next 48 hours to once again take care and protect your children and my children when we are going out to try and recover from the hard lockdown. So how is this in any way justifiable?
Well, the Public Servants Association, the second largest union representing public sector workers, that includes you, Fedusa, did not join the other unions and the government in the conciliation process. Do you want to take us through why?
Well, the Public Servants Association is an affiliate of Fedusa, and our collective action has moved forward. We have not taken the route of going for arbitration within the SABC because we are in no way intending to renegotiate on a legally binding agreement that the government had publicly welcomed and openly embraced on the 8th of June 2018 when the agreement was concluded. So why signal an intention? Why create an expectation that the funds are available in order to expand on and to honor the agreement when now all of a sudden on the 99th minute you suddenly do not have funds available? That is totally underhanded and it's not anywhere acceptable.
And what came out of that conciliation process between unions and government was that unions had reservations about the government's proposal of a 4.4% wage increase for workers at levels 1 to 8 and a once-off cash gratuity. Well, rather than getting nothing at all, Riefdah, will you not perhaps consider this offer?
It's once again, we have to understand there were not necessarily conciliations, but a direct route from the other parties within the PSCBC to go for arbitration, essentially indicating that they are holding government accountable. Our route has been completely different in that we have gone directly to the Labour Court because of the fact that government had signed the agreement. We are in no way saying that we are not prepared to consider any options, but why on the 99th minute, under very precarious circumstances are you signaling that intention? We simply cannot accept that form of underhandedness when we know full well the reasons why there are challenges within the fiscus as a result of corruption, greed and maladministration. And the public servants cannot continue to be held as scapegoats in managing a situation that government continues to score own goals for.
Well, with the government's assertion of the economic difficulties that the country is currently facing and made worse by the COVID-19 health interventions, the government fiscus obviously has been hit real hard and has caused a huge dent on the fiscus. And I would imagine the government saying that it doesn't have money in the medium to long term to afford workers a wage increase, and the reasonable expectation, perhaps judging from history, would be that workers would take to the streets and go on strike. But then, will this not cripple service delivery and harm efforts to contain COVID-19?
You know, Sampi, we have to remove emotion from fact in this discussion here. COVID-19 has been a pandemic that the public servants had to manage. We cannot allow government to continuously push the agenda and work on public sympathy by saying that they simply do not have the funds. They had budgeted for the funds in the first place, and if they had been able to work with a degree of efficiency, if they had looked at many situations with a proper consideration and inclusivity within which we are engaging within chambers, they would not have been at this situation. We cannot continue to allow the public to listen to a narrative that says there is no money when clearly they had budgeted for money. If they had only been skillful in terms of the management processes from the Zuma administration already, when the bloatedness had been defined and clearly articulated in the medium-term budget policy statement, we would not have been in this process. Cabinet needs to review and government needs to look at their own backyard first before they move forward on this process. I equally want to bring your attention to the fact that the public sector has been operating at dismal levels. 120,000 critical posts continue to remain vacant, and continuously these public servants are diligently moving forward. How do we even begin to give expression? How do we begin to justify the fact that public servants cannot be rewarded? They have been asking for many concessions over the specific period of the lockdown and the pandemic, and their pleas are not heeded. Yet we are able to engage other sectors of society that remain unregulated, but the public servants remain on a back foot around every bend. It is not acceptable and cannot be justifiable.
You know, a legal action of this nature will certainly be a long and a protracted legal battle, which might even take months. So what should happen in the meantime?
Well, in the meantime, we continue to keep our members abreast of developments. In the meantime, we continue to move forward with the action because we believe that we have a solid case here. Even as early as a few days ago, many of the other parties within Chamber have equally realized the value of the process, and engaging government in Chamber is simply not going to be helping when on the eve of the agreement to be implemented, they signal the motion. How can we then trust government when they continue to make commitments despite many challenges? So we will continue to keep our members abreast of developments, and we will most certainly put government to test in terms of its ability to be able to move forward on the issues. But as I have emphasized, we have to separate fact from emotion here, because at the end of the day, these are the diligent public servants who are putting their lives at risk day after day to ensure that we can attempt to move towards flattening the curve of this COVID-19 pandemic.
Fedusa General Secretary Riefdah Ajam joining us via Skype. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, that was Fedusa just giving us an update about the union's intentions to take the government to court over the government's failure to institute a wage increase.